All right. I just got an email that Tabletop Minions has gone live. So therefore, I'm going to assume that we went live. Spectacular. Think I got everything ready to go. Maybe a little bit more clicking around for a second. All right. All right, and we're all good. I hope you're having a good Sunday, or Monday, depending on where you are. Currently, looks like a bunch of people are already in the chat, which is awesome. Guten Tag, Sam. What do we got here? Denmark, Maryland, UK, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Florida, Atlanta, Australia, South Africa. Hello from Stoke-on-Trent, UK. It's been a long time since I last watched live. Well, we're glad to have you back, Dominic. Hello from Germany, ×2, Lancaster, Belgium, Finland, Chicago. Hello, Tim. Yokosuka, Japan. Hello. Winnipeg. Is it Sunday already? Yes, it is, as it turns out. It's around here, at least, it's a beautiful Sunday. It's bright and sunshiny. Not too cold, but not too warm. Yesterday was a great day for, well, it could have been a little bit warmer for priming, but the humidity was excellent. So I went and did a whole bunch of priming and base coating for terrain that I'm working on, because I'm going to be starting to do battle reports soon. I've been asked repeatedly for years, when are you going to start doing battle reports? And it's going to start soon, actually. So I'm building it's going to be probably a 3x3 or a 4x4 table for Shadow War Armageddon. That's going to be my first battle report kind of series. Will be that game. Eventually, at some point, I will probably also be doing maybe some maybe Song of Blades and Heroes. A couple different things. I'm going to be hoping to do that as it goes on. But yeah, the battle reports will be coming soon. That was a goal, actually, on the Patreon. For those of you that have been supporting the channel on Patreon, I want to say thank you. For those of you that are interested, you can go to patreon.com/Tabletop Minions, or you could just go to the Patreon website and do a search for Tabletop Minions, or you could go into the description of this video. There's a link in there as well. Anyway, one of the first goals, funding goals, was going to be I'm going to start doing battle reports, and so that goal's been met, and I want to thank everybody. But I have been painting furiously to get terrain done. I have lots of terrain, but sadly, most of it doesn't match. You know what I mean? And if I'm going to do a battle report, I want to do it well. You guys watch the videos, and you know that I like to do things with pretty decent production value. So I want to have a good microphone. I want to have, for each person. So that, because a lot of battle reports you watch, the guy with the camera, you can hear him, but you can't hear the other person. And that drives me sometimes nuts. So I want to fix that problem. And I want to make sure that all the terrain matches. So I'm painting up a whole bunch of Games Workshop, the stuff that came in the Shadow War Armageddon box, the big box, and then a bunch of other stuff as well that's also Games Workshop stuff. There's going to be some stuff in there that's not, but I want to make it all kind of look cohesive. So I have been, if you've been following me at least on social media at all, you've probably seen some of the pictures that I've been taking of some of that stuff, and it's been in progress. I'm not exactly sure who the first opponent is going to be. I haven't really talked to him about it yet, but I'm hoping it might be Sam. I think that Sam and I doing some battle reports, doing a quick little campaign would be a hoot. And the thing that's really nice about Shadow War is that honestly we could do we could shoot all, like, the entire campaign possibly in a day. If we were going to get to, normally in a campaign in Shadow War, you kind of keep score by Prometheum charges, or Prometheum caches, which are these little things that you get depending on how the game goes for you. I don't know that we would go all the way to 15. Maybe we'd go to 8, which is a little bit over half, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's where it's at. So that's kind of where all that kind of stuff is going. I've got my Chaos army done, ready to go. Although I may want to add one of the jump pack guys, the whatever the heck they're called. Can't really think this morning yet. Yeah, but I want to add one of those guys maybe to it, so I've got to paint him up. Anyway, so yeah, then we'll go from there, and we'll see how these things go. Yesterday was a lot of rattle can outside, so some of you might have seen that I was painting some containers, and they came out a different color than was on the spray can, the rattle can. And I think that's because that rattle can sat in the garage over the winter and froze, and it made it go from a light green color to more of a mustardy orange, or mustardy like yellow, which was sort of weird. So yeah, thank you, random hero, Raptor or Warp Talon. I would probably go with a Raptor is the model that I would make for a special operative for my Chaos. But I'm also working on Imperial Guard, and I want to make an Imperial Guard kill team is the term that they use. But the trick is that I also want to use that as a quick and easy paint video. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to very quickly and easily paint up my group of Imperial Guard. So that video will be coming out soon as well. Yeah, so I've got a lot of stuff going on, obviously, and you know, I'm going to keep putting things out. I don't know if any of you have seen the video that I made last Sunday. It went live on Facebook on Monday about what you can do with your 40K templates. You know, there's the blast templates and the teardrop one for flamers and stuff like that. So I made a quick video with some quick and funny sort of explanations about what you can do with your templates, you know, now that they're not going to be in 8th edition, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I put that up on Facebook, actually. I didn't put it on YouTube. I just put it on Facebook. And Facebook video is kind of crazy. It's, yeah, so it's been shown 53,000 times already, like really quickly. And it's had reach, they call it engagement, of over 100,000 people. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, I'm not going to start putting all my videos on, you know, Facebook, obviously. Facebook's better more, for me at least, I think, as a kind of a promotional thing, as opposed to, you know, as opposed to this is the end where I actually put the videos. But I've noticed, at least in less than a week, that the likes on Facebook went from 4,000-ish to about 4,500 in about, like I said, less than a week. So, you know, that's kind of good, I guess. Anyway, that's kind of where things are at right now. And I'm going to be making a video. Potentially, it'll go live tomorrow or Tuesday. And it's going to be about TMX, which I'm going to talk about real quick here for just a sec. TMX is the Tabletop Minions Expo. If you go to tabletopminions.org/TMX, you will find basically a page about this little mini expo / convention that I'm going to be doing in the beginning of June 3rd and 4th, here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So if you're interested, or if you live nearby, or you're thinking about making a trip or whatever, all the information is on the tabletopminions.org/TMX page. You can find out more information there. I will be doing a live show from TMX, not the next show we do. 2 weeks from now, it'll still be here, but 2 weeks after that, that will be a live show in front of a live studio audience, and you guys will be able, if you're not able to come to the convention, you'll be able to check in, and so that'll be kind of cool. I am nearly out of coffee. All right, so, but that's fine. Let me see here. What do we got here in the chat? Let me answer some chat questions and hopefully see what we can do here. Kaylee Anderson, I found a gunner with an autocannon and Mark of Nurgle to be absolutely brilliant in Shadow War, especially with a photovisor, clip harness, and camo. Yeah. First, well, so, like, my Chaos guys are going to be Nurgle, but a Mark of Nurgle is very nice. It gives you an extra toughness, so you're toughness 5 now in comparison to the normal, I mean, for your Space Marines at least. It gives you a 5 instead of a 4 toughness, which helps. The dudes, the little cultists, they can't take a mark, but, you know, I've got my other guys marked. I don't have a model for an autocannon, but I keep hearing good things about it in comparison to, say, a heavy bolter. So I'm going to have to look around and see if I can find an old autocannon model. To be fair, I do have an autocannon. When I was at Adepticon, there was a company there that had a booth called Shapeways. And Shapeways is a company that makes... they do 3D printing. You upload a file, and then they 3D print it and send it to you. Or other people can upload files, put them out there for sale, and then you can go and say, yep, that's the thing I want, and then they'll 3D print it instead. And then that person who put up the design gets a little bit of something, and Shapeways gets the rest. They were giving out different components for like 40K type models, and one of them looked like an autocannon, I think. So I'll have to take a look at that. Maybe that'd be a good kit bash I could do. Let's see here. What else have we got? How are the signups going for TMX? Any interesting games? There've been I just launched the form for that on Tuesday night, so there hasn't been a lot yet. But I've been talking to a couple different people. There's been 2 signups which I got to put on this afternoon or around lunchtime. One is going to be one's going to be first edition Space Hulk. And the thing about first edition Space Hulk that's interesting, this particular one, is it is the very first edition Space Hulk. It's the actual kit that I played, and that was my first ever kind of miniatures, kind of GW type game. And it's being run by my friend Peter, who is the guy who originally taught me how to play back in the early 90s. So it's kind of like the box and the set and the whole deal that kind of got me going. So that's gonna be kind of fun. There's another big game called it's a space combat game called Silent Death. That's kind of older. It was originally designed by Iron Crown Enterprises. I think that they went out of business for a while and then they came back. But anyway, Silent Death. It's going to be something called Fly Till You Die, which is also a game that I used to run. That's the scenario. But the Silent Death thing is something that I used to run with my friend Peter when we used to go to Gen Con and do volunteer demos for Iron Crown Enterprises. It's a cool spaceship game, and the thing that's nice about it is you can have tons and tons of people playing, and if you play for a little while and then decide you got to leave, you can just, you can step into it, play for an hour or so, and then step out, and it doesn't like ruin the game for everybody else. It's very kind of multiplayer that way. So, yeah, definitely. So anyway, those are the 2 that I can think of right now. I talked to a friend of mine named Rick from the Battle Badgers, which are down in southeastern Wisconsin. They're a demo group. They're going to be coming up and running, at the very least, Flames of War. And they're big and heavy into Flames of War. They're getting a bunch of stuff sent to them by Battlefront Games out of New Zealand, the company that makes Flames of War. And they're running they make big, huge, amazing maps. If you go way back, 3 years or so back in my video catalog, there's a video about the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and I went down to Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I filmed this kind of this little mini convention they were doing at a store called Outpost Games, and it was a big, huge kind of celebration, sort of, or remembrance of 75th anniversary of D-Day, and they were running these huge maps, and that was the same guys. That was the Battle Badgers. So if you watch that video, or if you've seen it in the past, you'll see the quality of terrain and boards and stuff that they do. It's top-notch stuff. So he's going to be coming as well. I'm working with him on figuring out details and things like that, but they're on their way. So that's kind of where we're at right now, but we'll have more as it goes. Gamers have a tendency, and I've done this myself, gamers have a tendency to kind of wait till the last minute sometimes to put in event information. And the trick is that this year, admittedly, is going to be kind of a beta test. So it's going to be one of those situations where you're going to probably, it's going to be a small amount of people, but it will be a good gauge for things that need to be tweaked and changed and whatnot for next year. So that's kind of where it's at. So, alrighty, what else have we got here? I'm seeing people talking about, Josh McCarthy, JMac, talking about Thingiverse. I've done some Thingiverse stuff myself. I'm hoping to be getting my 3D printer next month. It was supposed to be coming this month, but I think it's being pushed off to next month. It's Kickstarter. What are you going to do? So anyway, yeah, but I'm looking forward to doing that too. I'm going to be doing a video about 3D printing stuff eventually as well, especially once I get my 3D printer. What else have we got? Hey, Uncle Adam, greetings from Austria. Second time ever watching live. Your videos have made me join a club, playing Test of Honor there now. Waiting for 40K 8th edition now. Can't wait. Well, I'm glad to hear that you've joined a club. That's really cool. I do wish we had more clubs in America. Most people just play at stores or, with friends, but you don't see that many clubs, not like they do over in, in the UK and Europe. And I do wish we kind of had that. So, yeah, that would be really cool. What else have we got here? See, now I need to get into this game, says JP Morris. It's so hard to do minis with my friends due to the number of people who all want to be doing the same thing. That's interesting. Well, I mean, yeah, the issue is sometimes with miniatures versus, say, board games. If 6 people want to sit down and play a board game, there's plenty of board games that you can do that with. Miniatures are usually a one-on-one sort of situation, so I can see that being an issue. That being said, I used to have, and I haven't done it in a while, but I used to have people over and just be down in the basement, and I would have like my big table, which is 4x6, and we would usually be playing a 2-on-2 kind of modified version of something, let's say 40K or something back in the time. But then we would also have some smaller tables, like card tables, 3x3, 4x4, that people would be playing, other smaller miniatures games on too. So we would have 6 or 8 people over, and then, later on in the evening, we'd grill out. If it was one of the better seasons here in Wisconsin, and that kind of stuff, and it was fine. So you can do it. It's just if you really want to play, all together, it's difficult. Greetings from Argentina. Painting a Gorby's chariot. Thanks for the pro tips. The wet palette works great. Yeah, no, the wet palette really is. I can't talk about it enough. It is the thing that made my painting go from okay to much, much better, and it was seriously like a Tupperware thing and some paper towel and some what's the other stuff? The baking parchment. Yeah, definitely. So cool. What else have we got going on over here? Adding the finishing touches to my kill team for Warhammer World Tournament. Well, that's pretty cool. Henry Martin says Tabletop Minions Wargaming Club. Yeah, there's not really a lot of those. Like I said, there's not a lot of clubs like that around in America. I mean, there's. I guess you could have a virtual club, but we technically have the Tabletop Minions Paint Showcase Club, which is really just for painting, I suppose, more. But, yeah. Did anybody see in the Paint Showcase Club on Facebook? Did they see the pictures that I posted last weekend of my baleful realm gates from Age of Sigmar? Pieces of terrain for Age of Sigmar. I posted a picture of both sides of the realm gate, and that paint job turned out really well. I was really pretty pleased with it. So yeah, definitely. It's a good place to see all kinds of stuff, but I'm hoping to start posting more of my stuff in there. I haven't posted a lot of my pictures of my specific stuff for quite some time, but I'm getting more back into putting more pictures of my own stuff onto that particular thing. So, what else have we got? Adam, they just released the high wound models and gargantuan rules hints. I was kind of hoping that they were going to do that sometime this morning. So, let me kind of get into the subject here real quick. Readjust myself in the seat. So, since our last episode of the live show, which was 2 weeks ago, man, they have not stopped, and by they I mean Games Workshop, they have not stopped posting every single day on the warhammer-community.com website, which you guys should definitely check out if you're interested in Games Workshop stuff. You should definitely check it out. I am going to show you what I'm talking about right here. All right, so this is the Warhammer community website, which they started back, I don't know, end of 2016. No, actually, I think it was in early 2017. This is the place where they've got information about Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Black Library, the Horus Heresy, Warhammer TV, Forge World, and then, of course, there's a link that goes back to the shop. So they've got all this stuff on here, and they've been talking about the new edition of 40K, the 8th edition. They've been talking about it for almost a month now. Now, for those of you who are relatively new to this whole situation, Warhammer in general, Games Workshop as a company never used to talk much about stuff before it came out. For years, like previous to 2 years ago, their MO was, we don't announce anything officially until about a week before it comes out. Otherwise, we just ignore the fact that we're working on it. We ignore the fact that rumors have gotten out and people know it's coming, and they just didn't talk about it. Just did not talk about it at all. Now that they have new leadership, they have been very forthcoming. They have been very kind of inclusive on this stuff. So if you take a look at this website, they post several, now at this point, they're up to several posts a day. So right here is where the chronological stuff starts. So actually, let me refresh the page because I bet there's a new one. See? Boom, right there. Large models. New Warhammer 40K large models. Today we look at the biggest models in the game and how they're going to work, blah, blah, blah. So this one's about, well, let me go up here actually. Since we're talking about Warhammer 40K, you can filter on it, and it will show you, here's all the stuff that's going to talk about Warhammer 40,000. So large models, what happens with the new Warzone Cadia. Here's Shadow War Armageddon, frequently asked questions in errata, which is really cool. I noticed that just popped up yesterday, or 2 days ago. Information about battle-forged armies, all this stuff. They've been going through and explaining pretty much everything. And the really cool thing is that they've been talking about how stuff is going to work. So let's see. This is right about here is probably where last episode, the last live show that we did was here. And they were talking about, hey, did you just buy a codex in the last 8 weeks? Don't worry, we'll let you get money back or something. I forget exactly what you do, but you can work with customer service and they'll give you some money back, or I think maybe credit, or I'm not exactly sure, but you're not completely out of touch on that. The fact that you just bought a new codex and now codexes are kind of going away, they got you. So the first thing that they started talking about is they posted about the profiles. So they talked about, okay, well, this is what the profiles are going to start looking like. So here's your movement, which they haven't had a movement phase since like 2nd edition, from what I understand. And then, they started talking about all the other stuff. And they're showing, well, here's, like the profile for Robute Guliamin, and here it is for Terminator Squad, here it is for Tactical Squad, talking about explaining things. Now, at this point, let's be perfectly frank, they have not said when this is coming out. The rumors have been talking about how it's coming out in June. 8th edition should be, in theory, launching in June. There's a lot of reasons why. Partially, it's because a lot of the different, what am I trying to say? The people who work at Games Workshop have been given a memo telling them no vacations on these days. And part of those reasons that they do that is because there's usually a big launch on those days when they're told don't take any vacation days these days. So it's probably June. Another reason is because evidently their fiscal year, Games Workshop, as a corporation, their fiscal year ends at the end of May, I believe. So it would make sense if you started selling something at the end of your fiscal year and then it moved into your next fiscal year, you'd be spreading all the sales and the profits and the revenue across 2 fiscal years, which as business dudes you don't want to do generally. So if you wait till the very beginning of your fiscal year and then you launch your new big product, then you get all the benefits for this fiscal year, and then you can go back to your investors because they are a publicly traded organization. They have to do things, they legally have to do things to make the shares worth more. That's just part of being a corporation. You can't do something that will screw up the investment from your investors. It's like stock market kind of stuff, that's the way it works. My point is that this will make it look on the reports next year, well, look how good we did in fiscal year, technically it would be 18, I guess. Or maybe they run a year behind, I don't know. But there's a lot of reasons why they're saying that this is coming out in June. Now, I'm starting to see some backlash, which is interesting. I'm starting to see some backlash on the internet where people are like, all right, you're giving us too much information, just give us the damn game. Which is interesting since they used to never give us any information at all. Now there's people are saying, well, you're giving us too much information. Some people are just never happy, and that's fine. Opinions are opinions. Everybody's got some, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is that this kind of thing, telling us about... Oh, no, well, screwed it all up here. Okay, this is right. So telling us about the stat lines, the profiles for their models. That was one of the first ones. I was like, wow, they're telling us about that? Oh, they didn't stop there. They went through pretty much everything. Profiles, weapons. They started talking about what the new weapon stats are going to look like. Movement and how movement's going to work now. They talk about psychic phase. They talk about shooting. They go through charge phase, fight phase, every last thing. Talking about how Battleforged armies work and the FOC. And now they're talking about large models. So, basically, from what I understand, what's going to be happening with large models is a lot of what's happening with the large models in Age of Sigmar. Those of you who have played Age of Sigmar are familiar now with the way that the big kind of monsters and things like that work in Age of Sigmar. It used to be very different. Now, you can see here, as you take damage, so like a Morkanaut evidently has 18 or more wounds. So as he starts to lose wounds, when he's between 10 to 18 wounds, his movement is 8, and his weapon skill is 3, and he's got 4 attacks. But once he gets down to the point where he's between 5 and 9 wounds remaining, then his movement drops down to 6, his weapon skill gets better, because he's getting angry probably, and he gets fewer attacks, however. And then as it gets down to the remaining wounds between 1 and 4, then his movement drops down to 4, weapon skill gets even better still, and he's now weapon skill 5+, and then 2 attacks. Actually, I'm doing that backwards. Never mind. His weapon skill is getting worse. So the old weapon skill used to be, like if you had weapon skill 3, it was not as good as if you had weapon skill 4, and it wasn't as good as if you had weapon skill 5. One of the things that they've changed now with weapon skill and ballistic skill is they've made it more like Age of Sigmar. In Age of Sigmar now, they just give you a number. Okay, your ballistic skill is 4+. It's no more. So for those 40k right now, you will be giving a ballistic skill, and it is, let's say, 4. Now you have to take that number, subtract it from 7, and that gives you 3, and then you know it's 3+. Why? No one's quite sure, but that's always been the way. You took your ballistic skill, subtracted it from 7, and then that was the number you had to hit. Now they're just saying, hey, your ballistic skill, it's 3+. That would be the same as having a ballistic skill 4, just the way it works. The thing is that there are no modifiers. Obviously, they can kind of move those things around a little bit, so that's why it's important to do that. Weapon skill is the same now. Weapon skill is 3 up, 4 up, 5 up, whatever, depending. Weapon skill, which is basically hand-to-hand combat, is different, quite a bit different than it was in previous editions, because it used to be I would take my weapon skill versus your weapon skill, and then there would be a comparison. So now, like somebody who's got a really lousy weapon skill versus somebody who's got a really good weapon skill, you know, my lousy weapon skill is still lousy, but it used to be a comparison. It used to be like, well, there was a chart. Well, you're this and this, so therefore you can only do it on a 6. Now, a guy who's got, let's say, a 4-up weapon skill, he has a 4-up, you know, to hit hand-to-hand, whether he's attacking a cultist or whether he's attacking a huge monster or, you know, a Primarch, you know, or whatever. The thing is that now the Primarchs and all those different kind of big monsters have way more wounds, and it's not as big of a deal, and they, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, that's where that's at. They've been pretty much, like I said, every single day. I don't even think they're taking breaks for weekends. Well, obviously, because this just came out. Because it, you know, this is Sunday night over in the UK for you guys. They just launched this one here. They've been hitting every single day. It's been nonstop updates and explaining things. I remember when I was playing 40k, we were moving from 5th to 6th. When the 6th edition book came out, I went to a local store. There was a Combat Patrol tournament, a night tournament, and the Combat Patrol was like a smaller version of 40k. It was only 400 points per army, and it had some modifications, kind of like Kill Team was, but slightly bigger. And we went through a bunch of stuff, and we had a tournament, and it was fun. But the trick was that at the end of the tournament, at midnight, then it was legal for the game store to be able to sell us copies of 6th edition. So we'd all pre-ordered a copy of 6th edition. We got the book, you know, and then we all sat there at the store, and the store owner was totally cool with this. He was fine being up this late. We all sat there at the store and just thumbed through the book and started like comparing what was going on in 5th to what was going on in 6th, because this was the very first point at which anybody could have done that. There was no time previous where Games Workshop said, oh, well, this is what these are the changes we're going to make. Because basically, they didn't say that there was going to be a 6th edition until the previous week. So this is, to you newbies, this is very different. This is a very different organization at this point. And the reason that I've been talking about it a lot, there's a bunch of reasons. And some people are like, well, I don't want to hear about Games Workshop stuff. And I understand that. They're the biggest in the industry. So, it's not a good idea to completely ignore them, certainly. The second the second thing is, I also like to play these games. I've been having a lot of fun with Shadow Armageddon. I've been having a lot of fun with Age of Sigmar. So, having to report on this now, I will probably not talk about these guys again next week, unless they do something crazy, or not next week, 2 weeks from now. But yeah, I just want to let you guys know how very, very different this is in comparison to basically the way the company has been for years and years and years. This is the 30th year of Games Workshop, and the stuff that they're doing now is very much like what they used to do back in the day. They've gotten a sense of humor again. If you've watched some of their videos and things like that, they've got a sense of humor, and that's a thing they didn't have for years. So it's really interesting to see all this information coming out on this warhammer-community.com website and seeing all the information that they were putting out. And I'm sure they'll keep putting it out until the game releases. And then they'll just immediately start supporting it on this website every single day, probably. Because that's the thing. Like, if you go back and look at the actual base of the website here, and we go down here, and we talk about... So, on the 5th of May, they posted an article about Shadow Armageddon, Warhammer 40K, another one about Warhammer Live, one about Forge World. So, they put out four articles, all on the 5th. So that's the things. This is not something where they're like, well, every week we'll put out an article or whatever. They're doubling down on this Warhammer community website. I talked about the Warhammer community website, I don't know, just before it launched, because they announced it and said, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. And I thought, this is an amazing thing. This is something that I did not believe that they would do. And, man, they've been doing it. So, anyway, that's pretty much about it. Let me get my windows. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I want to get my windows all fixed up again so I can see what's going on and how people are doing. All right. What do we got? Okay. So, anyway, that's me talking about today's subject, which is 8th edition, and how, as a company, they are really changing what they've done and going through all that stuff. And it's astounding to me, at least. And, I don't know. I just think that it's great to see companies. The thing is that, I mean, this is not new ground in general. Plenty of companies out there have been doing this same sort of thing in our industry. Plenty of, Cool Mini or Not announces things. And Fantasy Flight, obviously, they announce the X-Wing ships, way before they come out and all that kind of stuff. But it's just really cool to see the biggest in the industry finally kind of wake up a bit and go, oh yeah, we should probably do that, because that's how businesses run these days. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. What have we got over here in the chat? I apologize, because I couldn't watch the chat while I was also doing the other thing, so sorry about that. Jamie asks, hi Adam, I want to varnish my miniatures, and I was wondering if you've ever airbrushed Vallejo matte varnish. Does Vallejo matte varnish and testers leave a shine at all on the model? My favorite matte varnish is Tester's Dull Coat, and it comes in a tiny little spray can. I have some Vallejo matte varnish for my airbrush. I have not tested it yet. I keep meaning to do so, but the problem is that more often than not, the stuff that I want to really make sure is really well varnished, I'm always a little nervous about testing other companies' varnish on it. What I need to do is I need to paint up some real quick and easy simple models, make them real glossy, and then test a couple of different varnishes through my airbrush to see which one works. I know Tester's Dull Coat in the little tiny rattle can always works. So I haven't tested anything else on the models that I really want to make sure to keep nice and sealed. So I've been only using it. I do have other stuff and I do want to test it. I just haven't had the time to, what I want to do is take some Space Marines or something that I find on eBay and then just paint them real super glossy with something, and then go back and test a couple different matte varnishes. This would be a good video, obviously, so I would probably do that. test a couple different matte varnishes and say, okay, this is what Vallejo matte looks like. This is what, Army Painter's got a matte little, and just fire it through airbrush and see what happens. See what happens if I need to thin it some, things like that. Right now, if you live in a country where you can get it, I would tell you the Tester's dull coat in the little tiny rattle can is the way to go. It's my favorite. It does the flattest surface. If you really want something to look matte, there's plenty of matte sprays out there that don't look very matte. They look kind of semi-gloss. But the Tester's dull coat, if you do it right, and if it's not too humid, it's the best stuff out there, in my opinion. So, what else have we got going on in here? Thomas Murphy says, like 8th edition so far, the group I used to play with found it too cumbersome, probably meaning 40k in general. Been collecting Eldar since 2nd edition, and they got too strong to be fun for balanced play. Bring back the balance. That's, yeah. I've got a friend who plays a lot of Eldar, and I don't like to play against him because of it, because it's always just a very foregone conclusion. That all being said, the fact that they're getting rid of all the codexes and starting everything from scratch, basically, they're ripping off the Band-Aid, I really feel that they're doing that to try to make things as balanced as possible. Because it's very difficult when you're constantly trying to, well, we're going to come up with a new edition, and then we have to modify and make new, and they're constantly adding codexes but not getting rid of the old ones. It's very difficult to get everything balanced. When you just decide, boom, we're done, and we're going to start over, then that's when hopefully you can do that. So we'll see how it goes, yeah. Siri says, very respectable that you are showing good examples to youngsters of being very well behaved. Many adults are behaving badly, and not just on YouTube videos. It is important to remember children around us, too. I just want to be, I don't know. Some people have said, oh, you're a voice of reason within this, area, this niche. I just don't know what the point of not being a voice of reason, or I don't understand why you get mad about things. This is the fact of the matter is that everything, we're currently 672 people watching here, and including myself, 675. There's a cat over there, and there's my wife. All of us, if we're interested in playing a game, we need to remember that it's so that we have fun. Games are supposed to be fun. If you get super angry and say horrible things to people in comment sections and stuff like that about a game, that to me seems really weird. Like, I can understand when people get really heated about politics and things like that. That's things that really affect their livelihood or affect their beliefs and things like that. But we're talking about pushing around little plastic, soldiers and stuff like that. So yeah, games should be fun, and I just feel that being, level-headed about it and looking at it from a bunch of different angles just makes more sense, So anyway, that's where we're at. Stripping models use brake fluid. I keep hearing that, and I keep thinking that I should try it out, but I'm concerned. I should be doing more testing. A lot of people have been telling me about 91% isopropyl alcohol as well, and some people are like, oh, it'll work on plastics just fine, and I'm slightly dubious, but I need to do more testing. I did a video a couple years ago about the pitfalls of stripping, and in that I used green stuff. No, not green stuff, sorry. Simple green and super clean, which is purple, and just grabbed some models that I bought on eBay and tried to strip them. And even though I always like to use super clean, the purple stuff, neither of those things worked very well on these particular models. It got some of the paint off, like the metallics and things like that, but whatever this person had sprayed on these models as far as the flat green color, didn't not want to come off. So that was basically a video about how, you can't always strip the models completely, but you can get pretty close. But in that comments section, there was tons of people who were like, oh, I use this, I use that. I heard about Dettol a lot, which I don't think I can get in America. Herman says hello to the cat. She left. But I appreciate it. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of different things. Brake fluid I keep hearing about. When I go to the gas station, I see brake fluid on the shelf when I'm waiting in line and stuff, and I keep thinking, I should get some of that. I'll have to give it a try. Jay Newell says, what do you think about GW allowing online sales now? Yeah, I'm going to talk about that real quickly. So, for years, Games Workshop did not allow online retailers to sell their product. So, the only way to buy Games Workshop product was to buy it from a Games Workshop store, an independent retailer, that had access to Games Workshop stuff, whether they were through a Games Workshop contract where they would get distribution direct from Games Workshop, or some stores can't get or don't want. Like, if you want to be a Games Workshop, a store that carries Games Workshop, you want to have a Games Workshop contract as an independent retailer, you have to buy a specific amount of stuff. You need to buy like a paint rack with a whole bunch of paint on it. You got to keep a bunch of different stuff in. At least that's the way it used to be. You had to have a bunch of stuff, and it was a big initial investment. But if you wanted to work with the distributor that you get your normal games from, a lot of those distributors also would sell you stuff from Games Workshop. They just wouldn't sell it as good of a discount to the retailer. So the options were buy it from Games Workshop store, buy it from a independent retailer that could get it, or buy it from the website. You could not go to websites like the War Store or miniwargaming.com. Back when they used to be an online store, there was this place you couldn't get Games Workshop stuff online. Frontline Gaming, all these different guys. And the reason they did that is because they said it was because they felt that the online retailers. I actually had a guy who worked for Games Workshop America told me this probably 3-4 years ago. The reason that they didn't want the online retailers' money was because they felt that the online retailers were ruining the hobby. Because they didn't have stores open, where people could come in and learn stuff. They were just selling it at a discount. You know what I mean? Which I can understand to a degree. But I think that they've changed their mind, obviously, because starting, I want to say it was maybe this week, Games Workshop now allows online retailers to sell their product through their web stores. Frontline Gaming, the War Store, all these companies can now sell Games Workshop product through their web stores because they want to sell more product. It just makes sense. You know what I mean? Now, they've added, I believe, a maximum allowable discount. So if you're a store like, let's say, Frontline Gaming, you can only sell the stuff now at 15%, up to 15% off of retail. Online retailers have a tendency to sell things cheaper because they want you to buy it online. You have to go through more hassle. There's usually some shipping costs, so that's why they give you a discount. The max discount, if they want to be able to get things directly from Games Workshop to then turn around and sell, the max discount is going to be 15%. So that's kind of what they've decided to kind of do. And Melanie's very right. You could always buy GW stuff from the War Store, but the legality of it was that you couldn't buy it through a shopping cart system. If you wanted to buy stuff from the War Store, they emailed you an Excel document with all the prices and the discounts and all the stuff, and then you called them on the phone back and said, okay, can you send me this, this, and this? Because the War Store had their own location. They had a store, just like I think Frontline has a store. I mean, a lot of these different online retailers, they are a store, but they also sell online. So, but you could not do it through like a shopping cart where you go, I want one of these, I want one of those, pay you money. Now you can. So that's also another big change from Games Workshop, and it's very interesting. What else have we got? Battlefront has a similar policy. That's interesting. As far as the pricing, like the minimum, the maximum discount, or because I know I've bought stuff from Battlefront, not direct from Battlefront, but from other companies. Yes, everybody thank Matthew, moderator Matt today. He's doing the good fight. There's evidently a lot of different chatter in here that he's kind of trying to get rid out. He does say that he just likes to ban people and he is mad with power. I get that. But I appreciate it, and we should all thank Matt. And if you're interested, and you should be, because it's a cool game and has great models, you should go check out Wreckage, which is his game, and it's post-apocalyptic and skirmish and great stuff. Wreckage will also be eventually one of the battle reports that I'll be doing down the road, and probably if we can make it happen, I suspect it'll be actually me and Matt. We'll figure something out, and then after the battle reports, we will probably go out for cocktails, and there may be some social media photographs that may eventually show up, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so definitely Matt is the man. Kilty O'Neill says, I use the standard DOT3 brake fluid. Comes in a plastic bottle. Yeah, that's the stuff I've been looking at when I'm at the gas station. I need to pick some up and try. I'm trying to think if I've got anything that really needs stripping right now. A couple years ago, 3-4 years ago, when the digital codex for the Inquisitors came out, and they pulled the Inquisitors out of the Grey Knights codex and gave them their own digital codex, supplementary codex, I think they were calling them at the time. I was gonna make a little side group when I was still playing 40k. This was right towards the end before I stopped playing 40k. I was gonna make a side group of Inquisitors because I just thought the modeling was gonna be cool and everything. So I started buying, like on eBay and at different auctions and things like that. I would buy a couple of inquisitorial type models and stuff like that, and then I stripped them all. They're all predominantly metal, so it's easier to strip metal just because you can use rougher chemicals on them. But yeah, so I have a bunch of them, and then I decided to stop playing 40k for quite some time. And I have to be honest, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to get back into 40k specifically. I'm very glad that it seems to be going well, and they're doing a lot of work to get, and people are interested. I mean, for the amount of changes they're talking about, the PR of it is really working well because, yeah, there are people who are angry, but there are far more people that are like, I am cautiously optimistic, or I like what you're doing here. So I think that's a smart thing to do. That all being said, I don't know that I really want to build a humongous army. You know what I mean? Like when I play Age of Sigmar, I play like 1,000-point games right now. And that's not bad. That's 20 to 30 models generally. But I don't know that I want to build a big, 40k force. But I love Shadow War because it's small, so I'm having fun with that. But I am glad to see that the 40k stuff is going on. All that being said, I'm super glad that they put Inquisitors into Shadow War. And that since I have a whole bunch of inquisitorial stuff already, stripped even, I will probably make an inquisitorial kill team for Shadow War and try that out. And I think that I was looking through the rules actually last week because they just released the rules for that and Sisters of Battle or something. And so that's kind of interesting, definitely. Those are free downloads you can get online actually on the GW website. Probably it's most likely on the Warhammer community website. So, do I think that the Death Alliance needs more love in Age of Sigmar? I do, and that's because I've got a Death Army. I gotta figure that they're going to start coming out with some sort of new stuff for it. I was glad to see that they've announced that there will be new models for Death Alliance for that Shadespire game that's going to be coming out towards the end of the year. For those of you that haven't seen anything about it, it's called Warhammer Underground Shadespire, and it is in the world of Age of Sigmar, but it's not a skirmish game like Shadow War. It's even smaller. Like you have like 4 people, maybe 3 in your army, up to 5 maybe, I don't know. But it's played like in a little arena, and it's designed to be played kind of competitively. You play best out of 3, and it takes like 40 minutes. They're very quick games. It's a little bit like, I feel as if they're trying to target X-Wing a little bit. You know what I mean? Because X-Wing is very competitive heavy, and but these are models that are going to be, they're going to go together very quickly and easily. They're in colored plastic, so if you don't paint them, it's okay. I think you should paint them, but there are people that just don't like to do that, and that's fine. So, but that game's not coming out till later in the year, from what I understand. But they did just recently announce for Shadespire that, because the 2 initial forces for Shadespire, of course, are Stormcast and Khorne Bloodbound, but they have recently showed off new models for Death that will be working for Shadespire. So since they're working on those, potentially they're working on other new models for Death in Age of Sigmar as well. So we can hope. We'll see how that goes. What else have we got? Zombie Boy's got a very good question. How do I convince my grumpy, snobby Necromunda gang to play Shadow War Armageddon? Yeah, that's a good question. There are, so Necromunda was a game that they came out with in the mid-90s, and Shadow War Armageddon is basically the same rule set, but different, with some little changes here and there. The difference between Necromunda and Shadow War, for those of you that don't know, is the old Necromunda was it was all gangs. It was all mutants and different gangers and things like that fighting in the basements, basically, of a giant hive city and fighting for turf and stuff like that. This new Shadow War Armageddon is, you're using normal 40k figures. You're not using special, only for Necromunda type characters. You're using Necrons and Space Wolf Scouts and Harlequins and junk like that. So you're using the normal models that are in the game. And some of the people who are just hardcore Necromunda fans are like, yeah, but I can't use my gangs now. Well, eventually, I'm sure, if it hasn't happened already, I haven't been looking, but if it hasn't happened already, somebody will eventually make probably stats, unofficial house rule stats, and put them out there somewhere for gangers, for the old models, so that you could play them in Shadow War. I would be almost amazed if Games Workshop themselves doesn't eventually go, oh, by the way, if you like the old gangers, here's a free PDF, download it, use those guys, knock yourselves out. How to get those people that are snobby about it, I don't know. I mean, if someone doesn't want to play, they don't want to play. I think what you do is you find some people who do want to play, and you just play, and then maybe you'll be having enough fun, like at your club or whatever, that your snobby friends will be like, well, what about, and then eventually you might pull them in. That's the best thing you can do. There's no good way to force somebody, obviously, to have fun. People like to have fun in their own ways, but you can, you can give it a try. Has anyone realized that Sly Marbo, the new model for Warhammer 40k, is an anagram of Rambo? Well, first, he's not a new model. Sly Marbo has been around for quite some time. Back in the old days when I used to play 40k, I had a friend who played Imperial Guard. Sly Marbo is a guy who, basically, he's an independent character, and he can pop up anywhere on the board and throw a satchel charge. One time, my friend Carl popped up Sly Marbo within 6 inches of a group of my Plague Marines, threw a single satchel charge, and rolled well enough to kill 7 out of 8 of them. And Plague Marines are hard to shift. They are tough customers because of the whole Nurgle thing. They've got toughness 5, but he threw such a powerful satchel charge. I mean, he killed himself too, but that's kind of what Marbo did. Marbo was a character who just pop up and do that. They announced last week, or they gave some special rules and special scenarios for Shadow War, where you could play one-man or one-figure armies. And one of the one-man armies was, I play Marbo, you play your normal army, and see how that works. So they got special kind of add-ons for that. So, definitely. What else have we got here? I have a supplement for Horus Heresy units to play Shadow War. Oh, that's interesting. So 30k characters to pull into Shadow War? That's kind of cool. What else have we got? Because of the new Marbo rules, what other Kitbashed 40k models would you want GW to make rules for, especially from the older models? That's a good question. I don't know. I'm going to do, talking about just, excuse me, kit bashing in general. In kit bashing, for those of you that don't know, or maybe English is not your first language, or even if it is, so it's a piece of kit bashing is a piece of slang, and it is the concept of taking multiple pieces of models usually, and this is in our realm. Kit bashing originally came from scale modelers who would build crazy looking vehicles out of, like, you take a whole bunch of turrets off of a battleship model and you put them on the side of a car, and now it looks like the car has machine guns on it or whatever. That was what the original kit bashing was. Within our niche, kit bashing is taking multiple parts of certain different models, putting them all together to make a new model. I'm going to be doing a video about that soon. I actually did a little bit of kit bashing last night because I am building a commissar for my Imperial Guard Shadow War kill team, and he's a special operative that you can bring in, like, special from time to time. And the model that I'm using is the standard GW model for the commissar, except he's holding a plasma pistol in one hand and he's got like a sword in the other hand. And I didn't want him to have the sword. I liked the idea of him having a power fist, which is something that you can do in the rules. The thing is, there's no model of a commissar with a power fist necessarily, specifically while he's also holding a plasma pistol. The left-handed power fist is hard to find for that. So I was able to find actually the left-handed power fist for a 30k Space Marine, which is a little bit smaller and is not completely covered in skulls like everything else in 40k Space Marines. And so I did a bunch of sanding and cutting and shaving and clipping last night, and I'm going to post a picture about it later on. But yeah, he's I don't know, he looks kind of cool because he's got this humongous, like, humongous left fist giant, huge power fist and then a plasma pistol and stuff. And he's a cool looking model now. So that kind of kit bashing is fun. If I was going to sit down and make a Sly Marbo type character, if I wanted to go that direction, I would probably use the jungle fighter guys from Imperial Guard, Catachan. I can't pronounce it. It's very strange. But I'd use one of those guys because they're always like, sleeves ripped off, kind of like, jungle fighter dude. So I'd probably throw him and then give him like a little suitcase as a satchel charge or something like that. And it'd be fun to do. I might do one of those guys, actually. Anyway, I digress. What do we got? Just finished a commission for a Khorne Demon Army. First work I finished in a bit. How would you recommend getting your name out there? Most forums don't take kindly to my shilling. Well, nobody likes to be shilled. There's a guy in my local area who has been doing a lot of commission painting. And he has just been going to local stores and seeing if it would be okay to put up like a little poster. He's got like a really nice color poster that shows a bunch of his stuff. And the thing about going to a store and saying, hey, can I put up that, is that more often than not, people will come into the store and say, boy, I really would like to play this game, but I don't know how to paint. And what the store owner, who is smart, will do is go, well, this guy over here on this poster, you can pay him to paint your stuff. You buy the stuff here, you can put it together or whatever, and then take it to him, and then he will only just charge you for the paint. If you go to him and say, I want you to paint me this guy, and he has to go buy the guy, then there's a whole extra. But if you buy it from me, this guy can paint it. And as a store owner, that's a big hump to get over. People will come in who are interested in playing, but they don't want to paint. So if you can say, look, there's this commission painter who will do it, buy the stuff here, take it to the commission painter, he'll take care of it. I mean, that's why X-Wing but one of the many reasons why X-Wing is as popular as it is because the people who are interested in that kind of stuff but don't want to paint, they don't have to paint. So as a commission painter, look at your local area. If you've got local game stores, talk to them, see if you can put up a poster, design something nice, color photocopy, whatever. And I don't mean huge poster. I'm talking like an 8.5 by 11, maybe an 11 by 17, or whatever sizes those are in your neck of the woods, and go from there. You could do some cool stuff that way. That's one way. The other way, I guess, would be to maybe, I'm not sure how else you would do it online. One big way to do it is to, and this may get a little bit out of the realm, I would definitely look into making sure that you're on Instagram and know what hashtags you should be posting when the things you post. People like to look for Age of Sigmar. So if you painted an Age of Sigmar thing, make it hashtag Age of Sigmar because people search for that kind of thing and then they find your stuff and maybe that's a way to go. Make sure your profile's got a link to your whatever. Put stuff on Facebook. Make sure that you, if you have the ability, seriously thinking about making a short video, like less than a minute, on Facebook. Facebook's got a thing now where you can take a whole bunch of images and then just say, put them in this order, and it will quickly make a video, which people will see as they scroll past, and then you can boost that for very little money, $10, $15, $20, boost it, get it seen a lot. These are different ways. It's social media is a big important thing, but also just actually getting out, hitting the pavement, and going to your local stores and putting up some posters can also help because those stores, a lot of times people come in and ask them, do you know anybody who paints this stuff? And if they can go, oh yeah, they're going to get more sales because people will then buy the stuff to send to you. It's just kind of the way it works. And if you're working with local people, you don't usually have to worry as much about shipping, so that's good too. VJ Morph says, I commission painted years ago, always go through stores, it's way easier. Well, I'm not going to say I just made that up, but I did kind of think it up a little bit on the fly after seeing some stuff going on. And yeah, definitely. Have they released official rules for 8th edition? No, they have not. They will be... The 8th edition rules will most likely be coming out in June. They've announced tons of information about the 8th edition rules, except for when they're coming out. And I have a suspicion that could be... A lot of times the reason you don't necessarily give a date is because you really want to make sure that date doesn't slip. I'm sure the rules are finished, but they're probably at the printer or they're in transit or whatever's going on, and they want to make sure they have... if anything, they're probably going to release a big box set as well, and they may be waiting for that to show up from the manufacturer. So they're not necessarily announcing anything in case they have to move things a little bit, a week or two or whatever. I have to admit that the rumors that I'm seeing, you'll notice here that on one half of the screen, he's a Space Marine. On the other half of the screen, he's more of a Death Guard Nurgle Chaos Space Marine. And I have to suspect that that's probably indicative of what's going to be in the starter box. There's a lot of rumors going around, and they haven't said yet officially, but there's a lot of rumors going around that it's going to be Space Marines versus like Death Guard Nurgle Space Marines. And so that's very interesting. It's been, I don't remember, well, I'm sure they have, but I don't remember the last time that they were just totally like Space Marines versus Space Marines. You know, that the last big starter box was Dark Vengeance, and that was, well, actually, I take that back. That was Chaos Space Marines versus, well, there's also Cultists in that box, but there was Chaos Space Marines versus Dark Angels. And the box before that was Assault on Blackreach, which was Space Marines versus Orcs. There was a Tyranid one, I think, a really long time ago. I'm not sure. So yeah, I guess technically there is precedent because they did it last time. But yeah. Phil Morris says, for commissions, you can start Twitch streaming your painting skills to attract viewers and potential customers. Once partnered, you can add a commission button. Oh, and definitely start a blog, too. A blog is super important for your commission stuff. Sam has a blog where you can see his information and what he's working on and things like that. It's samsonminis.blogspot.com, I believe. And that's, yeah, he's got a lot of really interesting and good stuff on there. You can kind of see his work on there. And being a commission painter, you definitely want to have a blog. Not just a Facebook page. You definitely want to have a blog. Although you want to have a Facebook page probably too. Let's see here. The new painter, there are a few PA game designers, is a panic, I bet. Oh, that's probably referring to Bethesda, I believe, with Modifius. I can't pronounce the name of that company. Anyway, there's a company that's coming out with a Fallout, the skirmish game. So there's going to be soon, sometime this year, I think, there's going to be a skirmish game coming out based off of Fallout, the video game. So it's going to have super mutants and vault dwellers and all that jazz. We'll see. I got to be honest. The company that's doing it, not Bethesda, but the company that's doing the actual game portion of it, I can't think of any miniatures games they've done in the past that have had any legs. You know, they'll do a Kickstarter and that's cool, and then, you know, that kind of, I don't know. So I'm not sure. When I saw it was coming out, I looked at it and went, okay, that's great. I don't know. I like the Fallout video games well enough, though I never did finish the fourth one. But yeah, I think I've got my itch scratched in other ways in that situation. So yeah, but it's interesting to see that they're going to, at the very least, maybe some of those models might be kind of cool to use in certain situations. You know, we'll see how it goes. What else have we got here? GW said that the focus in this edition to start with is Imperium versus Chaos, so Marines versus Death Guard makes sense, sadly. Well, I love Death Guard. I just love Nurgle Marines and that kind of stuff. That's kind of my jam. So I could see buying the starter box and then splitting it with somebody who wants the Space Marines. You know, that's kind of a lot of what that's done. Like Matt and I did that with Age of Sigmar. I took the Stormcast dudes and he took the Khorne dudes. And so, you know, there's a lot of people who will buy 2 boxes. Each person buys a box, and then one person takes all the Marines, and one person takes all the other thing or whatever, and then you have twice as much. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Like if they give you like 2 HQ, or if they give you an HQ in the game, now you've got 2 HQs, you may not need 2, you know, or whatever. But you can always throw those up on eBay. Why not? Let's see here. How many layers of Super Marines are there now? I'm not sure. Space Marines, there are many different, codices. There's Space Wolves and Ultramarines, and these are the official ones, you know, Blood Angels and Dark Angels, and did I say Space Wolves? Yes. Technically, there's also Black Templars. There used to be more, like there used to be a codex for Black Templars, but then they kind of moved them into regular Space Marines. If you actually get down into the fluff, there are hundreds of different chapters of Space Marines. But if you get down into the actual rule booklets, there's regular Space Marines, which includes Black Templar and whatnot, and also White Scars and also, a lot of those things. But they're all in the main Space Marines book. And then there's Space Wolves, who are very different, Blood Angels, who are very different, Dark Angels, who are very different. I'm sure I'm missing another one or two. But yeah, that's kind of the way it works. VJ Morph says, Adam, as a Nurgle fan, are you excited for a Mortarion model? I am. I'm interested. I've got a old school... I've got an old school model of Typhus that I liked, but it was, Finecast. So, I mean, generally Finecast Nurgle is okay because... Nurgle is supposed to be spotty and got bubbles and pits and blemishes all over. So Finecast worked out okay for that. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to seeing that model to see how it looks out. I don't know if it's going to be Finecast or if it's going to be straight like plastic normal GW, then I'm really interested. And from just the very few images they've showed off of the Death Guard type models, I'm really interested in those too to see. To see what those are going to look like too, definitely. Because the Plague Marines that I've got now are all predominantly Finecast. Some of them are old metal ones, but yeah, that's kind of where I've been at. Dade Frost says, if you get multiple HQs, convert an alternate. Variety. Well, that's true. You totally can. Sometimes the models that come in the starter boxes are not that easy to modify because they have a tendency to be what they're known... Frequently they're known as press fit, meaning they go together kind of like one way. They just sort of, stick together. And they're not very customizable unless you get fancy with it. So if you want to get fancy with it, I mean, technically I got that model that I built last night of the Commissar. I got fancy with him, and he only goes together really one way. I had to do a lot of clipping and some sanding and a bunch of gluing and some goofing around, but that's what kit bashing is all about. So, yeah, definitely. The new Storm that cuts the galaxy in half in 40K has time effects. Some places are speeded up. Oh, and it started to scroll off the top. It's talking about speeding up. Let me see here. Do you think they'll evolve the Tyranids or advance the Tau with that? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. It's kind of a neat way that they're changing the story. There's been this humongous warp rift that has kind of split the galaxy in half. So there's people on one side and people on the other side, planets on the other, and the planets that are nearer to the warp rift are having all kinds of weird effects. It's easier for chaos to pour through. Plus, it's also making time run slowly, making time run quickly. It'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with that story-wise. I like the fact that they're making some big changes to the story without completely... obviously they've looked at what they did with Age of Sigmar and how people reacted to the fluff becoming completely different and doing all that stuff. Age of Sigmar, I think, in the long run was a good thing. I think that the PR, that the way they handled it was not great. And so I think they're being smarter about 40K because it's also their big, cash cow. So they've got to not screw it up. So they're being a lot more, they're watching it a lot more and making sure that it's really, hopefully working very, very well. JP Morris, do we actually know if the big Marines will replace the old ones? So there have been some pictures that sort of slipped out of, I think it was a picture of Duncan or somebody. It was like a promotional picture painting some Space Marines, and people were looking at them and going, those look really big. Because, so about a year or so ago, maybe more, they decided to start shipping regular Space Marines with 32mm bases instead of 25mm bases. I have no idea if these, a little right here, I don't know if that's right. But they're bigger bases. So they started putting them on these bigger 32mm bases as opposed to the 25mm bases. Those of you who've built Space Marines before know that some of them, especially the ones that have a bit of a wider stance, like their toes go right to the edge of a 25mm base. Now with the 32mm base, you've got a little bit more extra space around them. The picture that was shown was of... It looked like probably a 32mm base, but the Space Marine that was on it his toes went almost to the edge of the base, and he physically looked different than what we normally know of the normal tactical Marine, So all of a sudden, and then that picture disappeared. But people had, taken screenshots or whatever. And so it was a lot of talk about, like, oh my God, they're making the Space Marines true scale. Now, for those of you that don't know, what true scale means is that in the books and the stories, Space Marines are like, even when they're not in their armor, they're 7 feet tall. So the fact that in the game you put a Space Marine next to an Imperial Guardsman and they're about the same height does not make any sense. But, it's just because, it's just a scale issue. That being said, the belief now is that they're going to start... The belief initially was, oh my God, they're getting rid of regular Space Marines, they're only going to make these big ones now, and I'm going to have to go buy all new Space Marines. It doesn't seem like the case, but I'm not sure. If I have to guess, I would say that they're going to be making a new class of Space Marine, because Guilliman, whatever his name is, the big blue guy from Ultramarines who's been woken up, he, I believe, is going to make a new type of Space Marine. And it'd be awesome if they were Thunder Warriors. Thunder Warriors are the proto-Space Marines way, 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 way back in the day, before the Space Marines. So if they were like a new version of the Thunder Warriors and they were bigger and badder than regular Space Marines, that'd be really interesting. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. They haven't announced anything about that. Like I said, they got to... I guess they're still playing some cards closer to the vest. They can't release everything, but it's interesting. The 32s were when the Blood Angels, the Blood Angels switched over. They were the first, according to Jay. I agree. Let's see here. What else have we got? Feel bad for people with whole chapters if they ever do replace the Space Marines with true scale. Again, I don't think so. I mean, when they announced that they were going to start putting stuff on 32s, people were freaking out, and they're like, well, you don't have to put them on 32s. You can... The thing is, I mean, I suppose if you play in tournaments, well, even if you play in tournaments, Games Workshop at the time came out and said, you don't have to rebase your stuff. I mean, people talk about it and they're like, yeah, but if it's a bigger base, then I get a little bit more range to attack somebody, for, let's say, gunfire or whatever. To which my response is that, yeah, but then they get the same range back to you, because just because you got bigger doesn't mean that you became less of a target. You know what I mean? If you make the model physically larger, yes, it can shoot further, but it's also easier to hit at range, because it's closer. You know what I mean? So that's, I don't know. I have to admit, being a person who does not play competitively, a lot of these things, I just go, I'm going to play it the way I want to play it, because I play it with the people that I like to play with and whatever, and that's fine. And I don't go to tournaments. But because Games Workshop is getting more into tournaments, they're being much more proactive about this is the way it's going to be. But, if you want to play them on this size base, it doesn't, because there's no specific base sizes for, let's say, Age of Sigmar. When they released Age of Sigmar, they said that the bases didn't matter anymore, which I think is nice, because it was always problematic to sit there and try to figure out, well, what's the base size for these guys? I'm not concerned really about it. I think that if they make these bigger kind of true scale type Marines, like I said, I don't think they're going to be a replacement. I think they may be a different type of Marine, and it may be related to, what's his name there? Big Papa Smurf. So... Jamie says, hi, I'm being told that if I use just matte varnish, it will not protect the miniature as well as if I used a satin or gloss varnish. What are your thoughts? So if you really need to protect the model, like against... So if I'm painting models that I'm going to be giving demos with at conventions, and I know that people that I don't know are going to be touching these models a lot, and they may have Cheetos and Mountain Dew on their fingers and things like that, then I will probably give those models a pretty good layer of gloss coat and then give them the dull coat. You know what I mean? Which you have to then... you have to be careful, because any place that you miss with the dull coat will be shiny. So maybe underneath the armpit, if you sprayed them real good with the gloss coat and got a really good thick coat on there, and then you go back with the dull coat, you might miss some spots, and then all of a sudden his pants will get shiny, in between the legs or whatever, because you didn't get the dull coat spray in there. There's also brush-on matte varnish that you can use, which will also help. I've done that with some models where I know this is a bigger model, and these shoulder areas are going to be rubbing up against the foam in my carrying case a lot. So I will put brush on some matte varnish onto the shoulders, because I know it needs an extra layer of protection, and then I spray. For stuff that only I'm going to be probably touching for the most part, and I don't know that you need to protect that much, but it depends on what you're doing. Like I said, if you know other people are going to be handling your models a lot, then you may want to look into doing a semi-gloss, put it on there good and thick, and then cover that with dull coat. There's no reason not to. Obviously, if you use too much, it will start to obscure detail, so you have to watch yourself there too. But yeah, that's probably your best bet. What else have we got over here? Attack of the Supermarines. Well, we'll see how that goes. What's with the rumor that the Emperor was resurrected? I saw many pictures saying that he was resurrected and is angry. It wasn't the Emperor that got resurrected. It was the Primarch, Rabute Guliman, whatever his name is. They did a video recently, Games Workshop did, in his voice. And he says his own name, like in the third person, because no one has ever been able to figure out how to properly pronounce it. And I heard it and went like, oh, that's how it's pronounced, huh? That's weird. And now I can't remember how it goes. But I do remember it being like Rabute was his first name. So I've been calling him Rabute. So yeah, Rabute has been resurrected to some degree because he's been asleep for about 10,000 years, like in a stasis thing. And I think the Adeptus Mechanicus was keeping him on Mars. So he gets woken back up again. And he does not like what he sees. He does not like what's been going on in the Imperium. So a big portion of the story with 8th edition is going to be about him trying to... I don't think he's going to I don't think he's going to try to take over or cause a coup. Although if he did, that'd be super cool. Now that I can think of it. Like, it made sense that Horus was trying to take over the Imperium because he was tainted by chaos and all that stuff. I think it'd be really interesting if... Big Blue here decided to do that, but he was not tainted by chaos, and then you would have almost like a civil war. That'd be kind of interesting. So yeah, definitely. Robot Gorilla Man. Ooh, I like that name too. That's a good one. Primarch of the Ultramarines. Robot Gorilla Man. Or Robot Girly Man. Yes. Something like Osgiliath. Yes, thank you very much. It is very much like Osgiliath. I can't pronounce either of those. Yes. What else have we got? Hey, I've just joined, so I don't know if you've covered this, but thoughts on all Xenos being collected into a single rule book. So I don't know that they're going to do that specifically. If they're going to follow suit with the way that they did it in Age of Sigmar, which... you can see now, at least as they've been announcing these things every single day and showing how they're changing things, you can see how some of the stuff from Age of Sigmar has been, some of it, not all of it, but some of it has been, some of those concepts have been bleeding into what's going to become 8th edition. It sounds as if they're going to make, like in Age of Sigmar, there are these Grand Alliance books, which are big, thick, soft covers that are not too expensive. Like the Death one, the Chaos one, the Chaos Grand Alliance book was like $33 American, but it's probably an inch or more thick softcover. And it's basically just all the war scrolls and a couple extra little things here and there, but mostly it's just all the war scrolls. Now, you could still get all the war scrolls online for free, just as downloads and stuff like that. But if you wanted an actual physical book with all that stuff. Now, I don't know exactly how they're going to do this with 8th. I'm hoping they're going to do the same thing, where you can look at the data slates or whatever they're going to call war scrolls. You can get that information free off the website, but you could also buy the book if you want to. But then the way that they're doing it for Age of Sigmar is you have these big, thick books that have everything covered, just the stats. But then they come out with thinner, slightly more expensive hardcover books about the specific kind of sub-armies. Sylvaneth, Ironjaws, Khorne Bloodbound, Stormcast Eternals, and then they each have their own specific books that has fluff and other extra cool stuff and what they call battalions, which are kind of like formations are or used to be. So that kind of stuff is going to be kind of interesting to see if they kind of go at that by that same model. So it's not that all the Xenos are going to be put in one book. It's going to be that they're going to make, especially right off the bat, since they're basically getting rid of all the codices. From what I understand, they're probably going to release several of these big, thick books that are just going to have all the stuff in it. But then they'll start making these thinner hardcover books that focus on each of the groups again, and then you could buy those when you want to, or you don't have to. Like I bought the Chaos book once. I bought that big, thick Chaos book. And I was like, all this stuff is actually available free online. And there are some people who love to have a book. I'm not one of those guys. I can totally deal with having it on, printing off a couple of War Scrolls or keeping them on my iPad. But there are some people who like the physical copy. So they give you both options. But the hardcover books with the battalions and all the special stuff in them, I haven't bought any of those. And I still play, I suspect if you wanted to get into competitive play, you would most likely buy some of those very specific hardcover books because they've got the special battalions and the special stuff in them. But if you just want to play normally, and the thing that the trick about all of this, right now, in 7th edition, if you're interested in Necrons and you want to know more about them, you have to go buy the Codex. And then you might go through the Codex and go, oh, this isn't what I wanted. I don't like the way this works, or whatever. But now you bought the Codex. The idea about making in Age of Sigmar, making all those War Scrolls free, is that you can go look at the War Scrolls and be like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I like how those guys work. Oh, this is how many points these guys are, or whatever. You can figure that stuff out and then decide to buy some models because they want to sell you models. That's a huge portion. That's the majority of their, business plan. And if I have to buy a book before I can buy models, I'm a little bit less likely to do both. But if I can go look this stuff up for free, and from what I understand, they're going to be making a 40K app, just like the Age of Sigmar app, that's going to have all the information in there. That would be smart on their part to do that, because then that way you can just be looking at stuff and going, ooh, these guys are cool. I'm going to buy a box of those. Because not knowing whether these guys are cool, rules-wise, that's a hump the person has to get over before they decide to buy the models in a lot of situations. But if you can look at that information ahead of time for free, go, yep, these are super cool models. I can see how I can work this synergy into these guys I already have. You're going to go and pull the trigger and buy some models. Just the way it works. So what else have we got here? 40K androids are chaos tainted. Maybe. It could be. Well, can you chaos taint an android? If it's got like squishy bits inside, if it's really more of a cyborg, then yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you could. But could you chaos taint an actual robot? I don't know. That's a good question. That sounds like it. They should put it on Mythbusters. They don't really do that show anymore. VJ Morph says the 8th edition stats will probably be free as well, so you'll have a nice book and cool fluff and just extra rules. A lot of game companies are doing that now. And I think it's smart of Games Workshop to do that with Age of Sigmar, and I think they're going to do the same type of thing with 40K. Yeah, we'll sell you a book because there's a lot of people out there who just like the books. We'll also sell you the book because some people out there would prefer to get everything for free, but at least if you give them the stats for free, they'll buy some more models. But then if they really get invested, then they're probably going to buy a book later because it's got the fluff and they can read all that. It's got hobby information. Although, to be fair, a lot of hobby information you can just find online. But, that's the value add to being able to buy a book. But if we can give you the taste of it for free and go, look, here's all the stats for this army for free, and you can be like, sweet, that's cool. And then you get stuck in on that army and you really start to enjoy it, you're probably going to buy the book. Like, eventually I will probably buy one of those hardcovers for Age of Sigmar, I suspect. Like, if they come out like with a really cool sub-army for maybe like Chaos, I may buy one of the hardcovers if I ever do eventually decide to really build my Stormcast Eternal army. I'll probably buy one of those books. But, I can know what all the guys do right now. I can just pull up the app on my phone and then go, oh yeah, that's what's going on. And it's just a smart way to do business. Cool Mini or Not does that kind of stuff. Matt can tell you that, you can get the 2.0 version of Wreckage skirmish rules for free download on their website. But if you want to buy the book, you can do that eventually too. So, it's just a smart thing to do. Most of the companies that I know of, Infinity does that, Malifaux does that. I don't know if Mercs does that. I think you still have to buy the book from Mercs, but the models now are so cheap that maybe that's where it kind of evens out. I don't know. I know that the Mercs book was like late in shipping by a long time, and that really kind of messed with them as a company for a while, but I think that they're really starting to come back from that. And the models are great, and now that they make them in plastics, they're way cheaper than they used to be. Like a box of Mercs models, like an army of Mercs models used to be like $70 or $80, I think, and when they were in metal, and I think now they're $35 for the same amount of models because they're in plastic. So, that's really cool. But yeah, that's the way that most of these businesses have. They understand that you are interested in the rules and you want to check it out. Like, if the only way you can check out whether you like a rule system or not is by buying the book, you're less likely to make that leap. But if you can download the book, and in a lot of these books, it's just the rules. It's none of the fluff. Like, I'm pretty sure that the Malifaux book that you can download doesn't have any of the fluff, I think. It's like just the rules portion. So you can download that, check it out, go, oh, yeah, these rules are cool. I like these. And then if you're interested later on, you're probably going to buy a book. So Cool Mini or not, I think just gives you the whole thing. Like Wrath of Kings, if you want to go download the Wrath of Kings rules, not only is it the rules, but it's also all the fluff, which actually the Wrath of Kings fluff, the story that's in the Wrath of Kings book is really good. I liked it quite a bit. So you may want to check that out. Just even if you just wanted to download it and just read it as a piece of like a novella, it's a really cool story and I really dig it. Yeah, definitely. 12 Neef. How you doing? Adam, will 8th edition get you back into 40K? I don't know. I don't feel like it will, but we will see. I can tell you right now, Age of Sigmar got me back into Games Workshop. Absolutely 100%. Shadow War Armageddon got me back into the realm of 40K at least. At 100%, totally. I mean, absolutely. Those two things were super smart moves on I think on their part, and they certainly hooked me. So I'm still playing other stuff as well, but I had not played anything 40K, or excuse me, I had not played anything Games Workshop for a long time. And then when Age of Sigmar came out, I was like, this is very interesting, and I started getting really into that. And now with Shadow War, I dig that because I used to be very, very sci-fi oriented. I was not interested in anything else. I've gotten more fantasy oriented as the years have gone by, so now I like both. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, definitely. Hopefully Terminators will be decent now. They're decent in Shadow War, I'll tell you that, because now they've got a 2-up armor save, but it's 2-up on 2d6. So basically... Or no, it's 3-up. Well, anyway, it's really hard. The Terminators are really difficult, but the trick is that most armies don't get them, and you can only usually ever bring one. They're like a special operative that you have to spend a Prometheum cash, and then you can bring one Terminator, but that Terminator can wreck some face, so it's fun. I don't know that they may do the same type of thing, actually. We'll have to see how the Terminators are going to work in the new edition. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. But like I said, Shadow War Armageddon is very much like old 2nd edition rules in a lot of ways, and that's when Terminators were pretty powerful. So, what else have we got? Why not have the rules in the rule book as like a keyword, and only certain factions and certain units get access to these keywords? From what I understand, Douglas, keywords is going to be a big deal in 40K. They've actually talked a little bit about that. Keywords is a big deal in Age of Sigmar, and they're bringing that keyword thing into 40K. And the reason for that is because it allows them to keep a much tighter hold in the rules on balance and synergy. There are plenty of things where they put out a rule, and because of the way that 40K 7th edition is so crazy right now with all the different combined arms detachments and the allies and all that stuff, you can end up saying, well, okay, this rule now affects this other army, which we never even thought it would, and it can. That's why you get these crazy overpowered like Death Stars and things like that in certain games, specifically when you're playing against really competitive players or you're playing in the tournament scene. So the concept of keywords makes it very clear. Yes, this rule only affects units with the such and such keyword, and then that way, if this unit doesn't have that keyword, it doesn't affect them. So you can't go, oh, well, but what about this? There's a lot of that happens right now in 7th edition. Definitely. So. But, I think that's going to be an important thing for helping to keep the balance good for 8th edition as well. So that'll be very interesting. Peter Pan says, if it looks a lot like AOS, then why not stay with AOS? Why change to something identical? It's not that it's going to look a lot like it. It's going to have some of the same features, but it's going to be, and this is my personal idea. This is, if I was running the company, this is how I would do it. and this is admittedly a little bit more from a sales aspect than a gamer aspect. Games like Shadespire and Shadow War Armageddon are going to bring in newer players because they're relatively low buy-in, physical actual money, and investment in time as well. If you want to play Shadespire when it comes out, I don't know how much it's going to cost, but it's probably not going to cost a ton, and you don't even technically have to paint them because they're colored plastic. So, you and your friends can sit down and play a fun game, and your guys will not look like their guys, and it'll be great. So, anyway, that's a good intro into the hobby. Then you've got a step up, and that is something like Shadow War Armageddon. That's another step up into the army because your army can basically only be about 10 figures, except for a couple of armies that can go higher, like orcs can go up to 20, Genestealer cults can go up to 15 in your army. Then the next step up in complexity is a game like Age of Sigmar. So Age of Sigmar has got some complexity to it, obviously. I mean, people talk about how it's streamlined too much or it's too simple, and I don't find that to be the case after playing it. It is easier to play, but I think there's still a lot of times when I'm moving my units in a way because I'm like, if I do this, I'm going to deny his ability to move over here. It's a lot of area denial, especially if you're playing games with good objectives. If you're just playing a game, if you want to just play these games and it's just like, I have to kill you and you have to kill me, you're going to look at a lot of these games and look at them as being boring because it's a boring scenario. So in those situations, you can look at it and go, well, let's do it this way or let's do it that way. But that's the way to look at it, is that Age of Sigmar is the next step up and in complexity. And then after that, I think 40K is going to be the next step up in complexity. Now, the trick is, if you're moving along that line, you'll notice how you're playing Age of Sigmar type dudes who don't necessarily work in Age of Sigmar if you go ahead. Now, your guys who you use in Shadow War Armageddon, they could technically eventually lead you to playing 40K because you'll buy these Imperial Guardsmen and then be later on like, well, if I just bought a bunch more of these guys, I could add these guys to that group and then I would have an Imperial Guard army. And then you'll be able to go that direction. But if you start into Age of Sigmar and you get into it and you want to get into something that's a little bit more competitive or something that's a little bit more, I don't know, detailed or whatever, and you want to switch over to 40K, you're going to have to buy new guys, which is selling more plastic, admittedly. So, I don't know. I think that I'm wondering if 40K is going to be like the most complex in comparison to all the rest, and it's going to kind of ratchet way as it goes down. I get the feeling I'm sure that the 40K instructions is not going to be 4 pages like it is in not 4 pages of instructions like it is in Age of Sigmar. I'm sure of it, but I think it's going to be a lot less than it used to be because they're going to simplify things to some degree and go from there. So I think they're just giving a lot of options because they know they have the resources to be able to sculpt all these amazing sculpts and do all this stuff and produce these great books, and they want to give people, like, if you tell people this is the only way you can get into our hobby, if people don't want to get into it that way, they're not going to. But if you give them 12 different options, you're going to catch more fish, as it were. How about systems from other companies than Games Workshop? Well, let's see here. I've got, I'm probably going to try to run my Purge of Skeleton Keep game, which is based off of Song of Blades and Heroes. I'm going to be trying to run that at TMX, at Tabletop Minions Expo. I run that game at lots of different conventions. The downside is it's really only 4-player, so I don't know. That might be one of those games that's maybe more like 4 players can play it, but maybe a lot of people will watch. I don't know. I'm not sure. But that's one of the things that I do enjoy, is I enjoy games like that. It's a very indie game, Song of Blades and Heroes from Ganesha Games. Definitely. I'm hoping that some dudes from, Matt's not going to be at Tabletop Minions Expo because he is going to be in Iceland. So if you're in Iceland, say hi to Matt when you see him, June 3rd and 4th. But yeah, so hopefully some of the guys will be able to come from from the Chicago area and run some Rec Age. That'd be cool. And I've been enjoying that. My friend Jason at work, he and I have been working on our armies for that. And we, like I said, there will be a Rec Age bat rep eventually on the channel. Frostgrave. I've got most of my terrain together for Frostgrave. A lot of the terrain for Frostgrave was actually like already painted. Like, you know, like the stuff that a lot of it's from Gale Force 9, which makes this stuff called Battlefield in a Box, which is kind of pre-painted terrain. So I've got some like ruined kind of, you know, gothic-y kind of castle-y type stuff. I've got some walls. I've got now some, after Adepticon, I bought some ruined like Tudor-style houses. And I've got a couple of little pieces, actually an MDF kit that I want to put together as well to add into that group. But yeah, Frostgrave is, then I got to build walkways. That's the thing too. Just dropped my wedding ring, excuse me. I was playing with it. So yeah, I need to build like walkways, like little wooden walkways between some of the ruined buildings, because Frostgrave is a game that's very three-dimensional, just like Shadow War Armageddon is also. I need to build little walkways for Shadow War Armageddon, and I think I want to make them look like they were kind of made, like everything's ruined, and now they're going to be, like, people are trying to, like, make walkways between stuff, so they're using stuff they're finding on the ground, like just pieces of metal and things like that. I'm going to use a lot of sprue and, like, pieces of plastic card, and you just make these, like, kind of impromptu walkway things in between some of these ruined buildings, and do that because I think it'll look good. But yeah, there's there's plenty of other games out there. Eventually I need to paint my Conflict 47. That's the other kind of, if I'm going to get into anything even vaguely historical, Conflict 47 is the way I want to go, because it's not too historical. It's not that I'm against historical games. They just don't interest me quite as much. I mean, I like Flames of War, and I know, and the thing is that now there's a 4th edition of Flames of War. In the swag bag from Adepticon, I got one of the little copies of the rule booklet, and so I want to go through that and read those. I have to admit, it's quite a bit thinner of a book than the old mini rule book for Flames of War. So they're either making the text really crazy tiny, or they've streamlined the rules a bit. Or they've maybe taken out some stuff that you don't need. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't looked through it as closely as I should have, but I did get a copy of it at Adepticon, so I can look at that. Honestly, the guys around here who I play Flames of War with, we don't play as much as we used to. But maybe with 4th edition, that'll start to change. But if you go way back, several years back in my Instagram, you will find that, honestly, when we would get together and play, we spent the majority of our time making our cool little village that we were going to have a fight in, you know, with all of our terrain and all this stuff. And then the battle was almost secondary, really. So that's kind of fun, definitely. Adam, have you ever tried foreground scenery? Yes, I bought, actually, last year, not this past Adepticon, but Adepticon 2016, I bought a kit for a ruined Tudor-style house, actually. And it's nice, and I know that they pre-paint everything, kind of. They pre-color it. I don't like as it turns out, I don't like the color. So I bought it understanding I was probably going to completely, like, try to prime over it and then repaint it. It's just not quite, I don't know, I just don't like it. Like, the color is a little too simplistic, and I want it to look a little bit, because it's a ruined, you know, like Tudor-style house. Like, half of the top is missing and a bunch of stuff, but yet it's got no burn marks or anything on it. You know what I mean? And so I could just try to, like, fix it up a little bit, kind of add some burn marks, or I could just prime over everything and then repaint it myself. So I'm probably going to end up doing that. During wintertime, I like to use Winter Wonderland buildings as terrain. It's pretty funny. Yeah, if you buy those little Christmas village things that you see, like, especially if you go like a couple days after Christmas to the places that sell them, they're usually selling them on discount, and then you buy like a bunch of crazy little... They're almost the right scale sometimes, but yeah, those can be kind of funny. So... Bushido is really nitty-gritty small skirmish. Test of Honor is more streamlined. Bushido is really fantastical and full of undead and mythical monsters. Was it 2015? I think it was 2015 Gen Con. I walked by the Bushido booth, and they had this huge display case with hundreds of models in it. And they were not only sculpted just amazingly, they were painted amazingly. They were some of the, I mean, honestly, I have to be honest, the Bushido models were some of the, they were the best models that I saw at Gen Con that year, 2015. It was crazy. They were really, really cool. And there were all kinds of, like, there's like a panda, like a big panda faction, and there's like undead. There's all kinds of fantastical stuff. So yeah, definitely. I'll have to. I know some guys who play, and I haven't ever done a demo. I would love to do a demo. Maybe this year at Gen Con, maybe I can get a demo if they're still there this year. I'm going this year, but I don't know if the Bushido company. I don't even know who the company is that makes Bushido, but maybe they'll do that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Eric says granny grating and sprue make cool walkways. That's very true, and I do actually have a little bit of both of that stuff in the basement right now. I have a lot of sprue, but I do have a sheet of granny grating, probably 9 by 12. Granny grating, for those of you that don't know, it's like a plastic mesh, tiny little kind of squares inside, and it's used for you take like yarn and like a big thick kind of needle, not like a sewing needle, but also not a knitting needle. It's like a metal thicker needle that you probably couldn't hurt yourself too hard with, and you use it to you basically just run the yarn kind of through these squares, and then you make little constructions, like, and they call it granny grating because I think it's supposed to be easier for grandmas to do when their eyes start to go. I'm not sure. Probably easier than needlepoint. But yeah, you can get that stuff at like nearly any kind of craft store, and it makes it look like a good. If you spray it metal, metal colors and stuff like that, you can make it look like a nice like metal, grid walkway and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was part of my plan. That and just kind of random bits of plastic card, and then glue them on sprues and make it look like somebody tried to, cobble together this walkway so they could get from building A to building B. That's my plan. Dante says, I love the Frostgrave minis, as it's hard to find minis that look that sort of East European Slavic, which suits my multi-year Ravenloft D&D campaign I'm running. Oh, that sounds fun. The plastic Frostgrave minis, they've got soldiers, cultists, barbarians, and kobolds, I think? Or hobgoblins? I don't know. Or gnolls? Maybe gnolls. Anyway, I don't own the gnolls, or whatever the animals are, but I own the other 3 sets, and they're really nice. They are great models. I'm actually going to take the barbarians, and I'm going to kit bash them and give them like AK-47s and like gas masks and stuff like that. The barbarians, when I first heard they were making barbarians, my first thought for whatever reason was, oh, like Conan the Barbarian. So I was just thinking giant, oily, guys with a sword. But as it turns out, it's more like the wildlings from Game of Thrones, where they've got like these kind of makeshift coats and they're all wrapped in furs and stuff like that, and they have big beards. So I'm going to put those guys together with different weapons and different heads and stuff like that, and make them kind of post-apocalyptic, but still wrapped in furs. But they also got like a M16 or something like that. So that'll be kind of fun. They are really good models, though. Kevin Shelley says it's called plastic canvas. That's the actual term for granny grating. If you go in, I'm getting a nod from my wife. Yes, plastic canvas. So if you go into the place and you say, "Where's the granny grating?" they may not know what you're talking about. They may, but they may not. But if you say plastic canvas, they'll probably absolutely know what you're looking for. So there you go. T. McCarthy says, I thought the live show was next Sunday. No, actually it's today. And then it will be 2 Sundays from now, whatever that date is. And then the one after that will be a live show at Tabletop Minions Expo. So there will be a live studio audience, in theory. It'll be at 9 in the morning, so I don't know how many people will want to get up, who are actually at the convention, who will want to get up that early. But if they do, they can, be in the live studio audience. I'll maybe have a special guest. We'll see how it goes. That's kind of the plan. Potentially Sam might. I don't know if I can get him up at 9 in the morning, but if I can, he'll be there and it'll be great. So we'll see how it goes. And if it's not Sam, then we'll find somebody else. But yeah, it's like I've said, this first year of Tabletop Minions Expo, TMX, it's kind of TMX beta. I'm trying to get things kind of nailed down and figure out what's going to work and what's going to not. And so, yeah, I would have launched everything a little bit sooner, but there was a hiccup with the staff at the convention center. And because of that, we're going to be in the basement, which is technically a slightly bigger room than the room upstairs that I was originally planning on being in. But I don't know. The basement's going to be fine. I like the upstairs room better. It's got nice windows. There's good light in there. It's not that there's bad light in the basement. It's just all fluorescent. So that was kind of the hiccup, and that's why I didn't really announce it as early as I would have liked and didn't do a lot of that stuff. But it's going to be figured out for next year. So we should be good. What else have we got here? Frostgrave Plastics, Bushido Minis. Try playing TOH. I forget what TOH stands for. You just said it before. Something of Heroes. Mad Max Horde. That'd be kind of cool. Hello from Norway. Have you looked at the new game Rune Wars miniatures game? Like the models in the game looks interesting. So I got a copy of Rune Wars at Adepticon. Like basically if you got a swag bag, they gave you a free copy of Rune Wars. So I have a copy in the basement. And when I talked about the most recent Adepticon booty video, I showed the box. I'm thinking about doing an unboxing of it just because I've got it and because it's new. I don't usually do unboxing videos, but I've been kicking around the idea. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I asked the people on Patreon, I asked my patrons about what they thought about, should I do an unboxing of it? And I got a lot of yeses. So I'm thinking about doing an unboxing of it. I've been seeing people doing some stuff, doing some really cool paint jobs. Actually, the Matt, the Chicago Skirmish Wargamers, did some blog posts just recently about quick painting a lot of the stuff that they did for Rune Wars, and so I read that article, and that looked kind of cool. I don't know that it's going to be my interest area because you're moving blocks of troops. They go like in a little tray, and you move them in blocks. That's one of the reasons I never played Warhammer Fantasy, because I never liked moving guys in blocks. I've always liked them being separate. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but Fantasy Flight is definitely pushing hard on that property because they're going to be coming up with a lot of stuff for it, and I think they really do want to go straight at Games Workshop. You know, X-Wing over the last 2 quarters has been basically kind of outsold Games Workshop's 40K line. If you go and look, there's a website called ICV2, and it's for retailers mainly, and they every 3 months they do a thing where they post, here is according to retailers, and it's not just like a single number. They grab a bunch of stats from a bunch of different places, and then they go, here are the best, or the highest selling collectible card games. Here's board games. Here's whatever. But they also do non-collectible miniatures. Collectible miniatures would be like HeroClix and stuff like that. So non-collectible miniatures, and the last 2 quarters it's been Star Wars X-Wing, then 40K, then like War Machine. This last quarter, actually, it was Star Wars X-Wing, 40K, War Machine, Age of Sigmar, which was pretty interesting because Age of Sigmar had never been in the top 5, and now it is. And then below that was Hordes. So Age of Sigmar, according to the way that this information is selling better than Hordes, not quite as well as War Machine, but we may see that change next quarter. But the fact of the matter is, over the last 2 quarters, 40K has been in second place, which has not happened for 20 years or something. Or I don't know how long ICV2 has been around, but for nearly as long as ICV2 has been around, from what I understand, 40K has always been number 1 in that particular category. So it seems as if the people at Fantasy Flight, now that they're not working directly with Games Workshop anymore, they used to make a bunch of board games for Games Workshop, and they had like a partnership, and then that stopped. Now that they don't have that partnership to kind of hold them back anymore, they're going for that same market. They're going for that market. The fact that these models are not pre-painted, and that these are something that you are supposed to do the hobbying on, that's really getting into their area over at Games Workshop. So it's very interesting to see. We as consumers in general, when these types of kind of fights go back and forth between these companies, we generally are the winners. Because when Company A has what they feel to be no competition, they don't innovate, they don't make things better, they don't try as hard sometimes. But when they have somebody who's trying to eat their lunch and trying to go for their portion of the market, they have to fight back. And by doing that, more often than not, they fight back by making better product, pricing things a little bit better, all that kind of stuff. So when it's an adage, but it's out there, and it's been out there for a long time. But when companies have a tendency to go head-to-head like that, more often than not, the consumers generally win because they have to compete. So, yeah. It's interesting to see that stuff, and it will be interesting to see where it goes. The fact that they gave a copy of a $100 retail game to pretty much every person who had a swag bag at Adepticon was kind of crazy. I mean, that was also not only that, but that game they were giving away at Adepticon, that was 2 weeks before it came out in stores. So it wasn't even out yet, and they were so it was I think a smart part on them, and we'll see how it goes. JP Morris asks, Adam, if you don't like moving guys in blocks, what is your opinion of small-scale 6mm to 10mm miniature games? That's one of the things that I don't particularly like about, even though it's not 10mm, it's a little bigger than that, but Flames of War, I don't like moving the squads. Like, the squads of guys are maybe 4 or 5 to a little square thing, or a rectangular thing, and those guys, I don't like that. I don't know why, but I don't. The only kind of 6mm type games I like are like Micro Armor, and then you're not usually, again, moving blocks, you're moving your tanks separately. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really play much of that stuff. I used to play BattleTech, which is technically kind of 6mm, but different. But yeah, I haven't played that stuff in quite some time. So I hope to see Guild Ball on that list soon, as it is a really great game. I mean, I know Guild Ball is growing in size. I think it'll be a very long time before it hits in that top 5, but I could easily see it becoming something that gets into the top 10. I don't think they list out down to the top 10. They only list the top 5. But if they did actually start publishing a longer version of that list, I have a suspicion you would eventually see Guild Ball in there, because I know it's growing quite quickly. So, what else? Adam, so you're suggesting that the reason we are seeing the new Games Workshop is because they finally have competition? No, it's not due to that. Well, it's not completely due to that. It's partially due to that. I think it's partially due to that because it wasn't even, well, yeah, it's partially due to that, but it's also partially because of the new leadership. They got rid of the old CEO. I can't remember what his name was. And they got a new guy. His name is Kevin Roundtree. And he seems to be a smart guy because he has brought in smart people to do some things. They've decided, oh yeah, it's 2017, we should really start paying attention to social media, and they've been doing a lot of that stuff. If you guys have noticed, if you ever go to this Games Workshop website, on any given page that shows off, that sells a specific model, if you go into Instagram and you take a picture of a painted version of that model and you hashtag it, I think it's something like Warhammer Community or something like that, if they see that particular photo and they really like your paint job, they will put it at the bottom of the page so that you can basically get your pictures of that particular model attached down at the bottom of the page, because that's a community outreach thing. And so that kind of stuff, just being able to do that stuff, unheard of 5 years ago, completely unheard of 5 years ago. But yeah, I think that partially they're doing it because they know that, those annual reports they were giving out to the shareholders were not good the last several years, and now they're doing a lot better. So it's a big portion of that, yeah. Ryan Coleman says, giant robot fight game, what do you like? Well, there's Giant Killer Robots, which was a Kickstarter I backed. That's from Weta Workshops. I'm going to be getting a copy of that sometime probably end of the year, because that's when the Kickstarter said. If you go back a couple of months, 3 months, I painted one of them. I got actually Weta Workshop to send me a copy, not of the game, but of one of the models, so that I could paint it and then talk about it, because one of the levels in the Kickstarter was the painted version. Now, if you bought the normal game in Kickstarter, those models will come pre-painted, but if you paid a little bit extra, they will also send you all 4 of the big models unpainted so you could paint them yourself. And that was, I thought, pretty cool, so... But you could still sit down and play with the pre-painted models right out of the box and then have a good time. It's a little bit more of a gateway game, that game, Giant Killer Robots. It's kind of a mix between board game and miniatures game. So that's one of the reasons I always like those types of games, because they bring people into the hobby. And that's really my main goal with this channel, is to bring people into the hobby and get beginners into that stuff. Melanie says, Beasts of War just did a Guild Ball week. I think those guys focusing on a game for so long likely helps. Yeah, I mean, depending on how they do it, certainly, yeah. But I did see that they did do a bunch of Guild Ball videos a couple weeks ago, yeah. I know, like I said, I played Guild Ball for the first time back in, when did I play? I played last year, almost about this time, at a demo thing for a distributor conference that I went to. And I'll be going to that same distributor conference end of May, and I'll be talking to the guys from Steamforge. They're going to get me a copy. They contacted me a little while ago. They're going to get me a copy of their new board game, which is based off the video game Dark Souls. So I'm going to check that out because it seems to be another gateway game. Originally, I was just like, oh, it's a board game. But then I looked at some other people online who'd showed it off already, because it's available in stores already. It's not like an early access thing. But it's kind of an arena battle type game. So there's ideas of, range and line of sight and things like that, which, like, a normal board game doesn't have those things. If you've got a thing that looks kind of like a board game and that it comes with a board and all that, but it still has to take care of range and cover and stuff like that, then in my mind that becomes a gateway game. So yeah, they're going to allegedly send me a copy of that eventually. So I'll either get it before then, or maybe they'll bring me a copy at when I go to that developer or that distributor conference at the end of the month. So either way, I'll probably talk about that game kind of soon. I've never played the video game, so I'm not invested so much into the storyline. I know it's like a really hard video game. That's about all I know. But yeah, so we'll see. I know that the models are supposed to be pretty amazing looking, so I'm looking forward to seeing those myself. The Fomorian says, Blood Bowl and Guild Ball aren't similar. They're very different to each other. Blood Bowl is, from what I can tell, it's kind of a fantasy UK take on American football. Guild Ball seems to be much more soccer to me. But yeah, and from what I understand now, Guild Ball is getting into plastic models. Most of their original models, though cool, were all metal, and I'm sometimes not super keen on metal myself. I have a hard time working with it sometimes. But from what I understand, they're starting to move more now into plastics, which is cool too. I don't know anybody around here who plays Guild Ball, but I know plenty of people around here who play Blood Bowl. So, what else? Adam, with the success of Marvel movies, what do you think of the idea of movies set in the 40K universe? Yeah, I do wish that they would do something. There was an Ultramarines movie about 5-6 years ago, maybe more, that was obviously it was a CG movie, and it was not good. It was, a friend of mine bought a copy of it, and we watched it on DVD, and it was really lousy. Just not good at all. I mean, it had some art. It had some voices in it. I mean, I think it had Terrence Stamp. He was a voice, and John Hurt, who just recently died, he was in it. But the CG quality was just not great. And I know that there's an Inquisitor fan made movie that's been being worked on for 10 years or something almost now. And I know that's getting closer and closer to release. But an actual real movie, I don't know, man. I don't know. It'd be cool. I mean, but there's so many different issues that could be problematic as well. So, yeah. I would love to see it, though. Don't get me wrong. Melanie says, I hated the Guild Ball medals. Well, that's a strong, reaction. But I understand. I didn't like them. I didn't hate them, but I didn't like them. Well, they looked cool. But I just from what I was looking at when I was actually looking at them in person, in parts, I was like, this is going to be a pain in the rear for me to build because I'm not great at metal. But a bunch of them, I think, looked kind of cool. I'm looking more forward to the plastics, though. Though, again, like I said, I don't know anybody around here who plays it, so I don't know. I mean, if I really got into it, then I'd be like, well, I guess I could build 2 teams and then play against people I know. But I've already got Blood Bowl as well. So, yeah, And I'm not even a sports fan. So really, if I was really a sports fan, I could see doing both, but we'll see. Why nobody ever makes a miniature game based off of basketball, do they? There's football, soccer. I don't think there's any baseball either. Someone should make battle cricket. That'd be pretty awesome. Be smacking guys with those bats and all that stuff. That'd be kind of cool. Sinful, did I miss the 40K rules instruction? Well, Sinful, you did, because it's actually, I'm just about to end the chatter for today. But if you go back, you can watch it. I talked about 40K stuff a good deal. And, that was just because there's been so much. So, yeah, definitely. Gaddis Gaming says, for Tabletop Minions, should I stay in the dorm or in a hotel as a GM? The upstairs is the dorm room areas, and they're $40 a night, and you get 2 twin beds, and yeah, you know, they're nice. They're fine. If you want to stay in a hotel, there's also hotels that aren't too far away. The upside is that the dorm is like you're literally right upstairs. So if you're interested in that, you know, it's nice. And Matt has been there, you know, but definitely. I don't know. I like the dorm rooms fine, and I think that the cheap price is good. So it's up to you, though. If you want a nice hotel, there are several that are not too far away. There's a Best Western Premier that's it's like right downtown, but it's still probably like a mile and a half away, so it's not too bad. And parking is not a problem. There's a parking ramp you can park in for free right near the convention. It's right across the street from the conference center, as it's called. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff like that. It's not a big city, so we don't have you know, big parking fees and things like that. So it's good. Space Jam miniatures game. Now that's a thing. I don't know. Didn't Space Jam just recently get re-released or something? Didn't they have an anniversary? They could have made a miniatures game. The kickoff box has 2 armies. If you liked War Machine rules, people make comparisons. Are we talking about the new? Because I know they're going to be making a new plastic box for Guild Ball, I think. So you can buy 2 teams all in one box and be ready to go. But yeah, Space Jam miniatures game. I'm not sure. I don't know. I didn't. Yeah, it's hard to say. All right. Well, anyway, it's 11 o'clock, a little bit after. So I want to thank everybody for coming and watching, checking things out, and yeah, I hope that you guys, you know, that I was able to explain some things a little bit about how this is a very, very different thing that Games Workshop is doing by being super transparent and explaining things up front. And I think it's a good time because when the big companies like that do these types of things, it causes everybody to kind of do them to some degree. So that's good. It's something about a raising tide, lifting all ships, whatever. But anyway, so 2 weeks, we'll have another one of these shows. It'll be, I don't know what it'll be about yet, but it'll be about something. Probably something not necessarily Games Workshop related. Maybe it'll be about some of the terrain that I've been building. Maybe it'll be about, who knows? The world is our oyster, isn't it? So we've got that going for us, which is nice. But anyway, the show after that, so a month from today, it will be a live show from Tabletop Minions Expo. If you live anywhere near the middle part of Wisconsin and you're interested in coming, go and take a look at the website, tabletopminions.org/TMX. And I should have made a graphic to go across that. I didn't think of it last night. But yeah, I'll definitely have that for next time. So definitely go and check it out if you're interested. And, you know, but at the very least, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And thanks for watching.
Two boy kitties.
I don't think it's stopped.
No?
No, how do I stop it?